Now, it seems like with these arrests, Iran is using the same tactics as the West in trying to tackle the Islamic State group. Could this similar type of approach provide an opportunity for the two sides to collaborate?
Thank you for having me. Because the ISIL is posing a similar and common threat to many countries in different parts of the world, so the tactics which may be used to tackle with that group may seem similar as well. Theoretically speaking, there can maybe Iran and the Western countries may be on the same page in dealing with those groups, but practically speaking, when it comes to cooperation between Iran and the West, it doesn't seem likely for now. Why? Because Iran and Russia on one side and the West on the other side, they do not see eye to eye and they do not agree on the ways and quality of tackling and fighting against the Islamic State group. Iran and Russia have been criticizing the West in the training of some terrorist groups in the region and supporting them financially and militarily and training them in some ways. This has caused the sides not to be on the same boat practically and in action to fight and to tackle with the group. And for now, for the time being, it doesn't seem to be likely, but for future, it will depend upon the developments in the field, that what will happen, and also the negotiations taking place at the table, the one which happened and took place in Vienna regarding Syria and is expected to continue in New York in the upcoming weeks and months. So that will depend upon much more what will happen in future. That may change the course in future, but we cannot say that it's likely for now for the time being.
Well, what's the feeling like there now in Iran? Is there a fear that the Islamic State militants are gaining a foothold in Iran?
The stepping up the security measures means that, the purpose is to stop those pro-ISIS groups or sides to gain foothold in the country. But when we look at the other countries, you can see that hundreds and thousands of people have joined to ISIS in the countries like in Syria and in Iraq. And in some countries, when you look at some polling, you can say that some people have similar thoughts to ISIS in those countries. But back in Iran, I think Iran has been much careful about this, and they have been doing all these measures to stop the ISIS to gain foothold in the country. And just, arresting these 53 people of supporting the ISIS in on the internet doesn't mean that they have gained the foothold. However, these 53 people who were arrested, they are not very similar in the amount of contribution to the ISIL. They have been supporting ISIL on the internet more or less. They are not the same. However, all the measures have been done here to stop them gaining foothold, and I think that needs to continue in future as well.
Iran has been very outspoken in its view that the Islamic State group must be fought. But what does Iran think that fight should look like?
Iran and I can add Russia to this side have been outspoken and critical of the West in their fight against terrorism. Why? Because Iran believes that the West is using double standard in fight against terrorism. If you want to explore Iran's position in this regard, you need to refer to the positions and the comments by the highest ranking person in the country, which is the leader. Iran's leader recently wrote a letter to the youth in the West, and he said that the Iran and West share common worry and concern in terms of facing the threat of terrorism. And he expressed sympathy with the Paris attacks. He also criticized in his letter that the West is having double standard in fight against terrorism. So what is the translation? The translation is that Iran is saying is that West, dear West, you are saying that you want to fight against terrorism. So good, let's fight against it. But hold on a second. Why are you equipping? Why are you training? Why are you supporting financially militarily, and some of your allies are supporting intellectually those, some groups in the region, which has contributed to the expansion of extremism and terrorism in the country. So the best way Iran, which argues and believes, is that to fight seriously with serious will against the terrorism, and let countries like in the region, after fighting the terrorism, have free and fair election like in Syria. Let the Syrian people decide about their future. And I think what Iran argues is that the ISIL even will bite the hands in future that they are feeding them now. So this is something, this ISIL or the Islamic State group poses a threat to many countries, even those two countries who are supporting them. And the best way is to fight them seriously and to let them, some countries like in the region, like Syria and Iraq, to have their own political establishment with the participation of their own people with the free and fair election. And on the second hand, I think those countries who have been talking about democracy in countries like Syria and in Iraq, they need to also have that kind of free and fair election. I think this kind of participation by the people's side, which do not have the same kind of thinking to ISIL, can contribute to solving to the problem to a great extent. And this is what Iran has been arguing for the not just for the past months, but also the years, and it has been criticizing the West for its this kind of approach, which Iran names it as the double standards in fighting against the terrorism.
All right, Abbas Aslani, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. You are the General Director of World and Foreign Policy at Tasnim News Agency in Tehran.